And firstly, I want to thank People for Profit for bringing forward this bill and for the work that they've done it. Social Democrats will certainly be supporting it. It's notable, Cathaoirleach, when the Minister was speaking, that he did give a long list of what he has been done, while admitting that it's not sufficient. He did give a long list of criticism of the opposition, but what was missing was a list of exactly what he is going to do and his government is going to do now to address the emergency situation that we are in. We didn't hear from him a list of solutions about what the government is going to do now, and you would think that we would actually get that. There's no question that we need to extend this temporary ban on evictions. To do so will only bring us in line for another number of months with most European countries where there is in fact a permanent ban on no-fault evictions. So it's potentially one of the least radical measures that anyone could put forward. And you have to ask the question, given the situation we're in, where we have the highest numbers of people living in homeless emergency accommodation in the history of this state, not to mention the situation of people who aren't counted in those figures, who are sleeping on floors, on couches, in tents, in doorways, not to mention the tens of thousands of hidden homeless people who aren't counted in those official figures, and the devastating impact that homelessness has on their lives, on every aspect of their life. You simply cannot progress in any other aspect of your life if you're homeless and without that security and without that base. Given that situation that we are in, it's quite hard to understand why the government isn't telling us now that they are definitely going to extend this. In fact, given that we have some of the highest rents in Europe and some of the lowest levels of security for renters, why isn't the government telling us that they're going to deal with this once and for all, put in proper security tenure for renters? If you pay your rent, if you're not breaching your lease, engaged in antisocial behaviour and so forth, that this is your home, and if the landlord is going to sell, then they would be able to sell with the tenants in it, which is the situation in most European countries. And indeed, an extension of the tenant in situ scheme and making that much more consistent and making sure most local authorities use it properly would be able to give that, address some of the concerns of landlords around that, as well as protecting renters. There's no shortage, Cathaoirleach, of solutions in terms of what needs to be done now, though we're not hearing solutions from the government. I just want to outline a few small solutions, relatively easy to implement. Firstly, spend the money that the government allocates on housing, on building much needed new homes and increasing supply of affordable cost rental and social homes. €340 million in the Department of Housing's budget last year, not spent and carried over into this year. That's in addition to about €240 million returned to the Exchequer. That should have been spent on housing last year. Those figures combined are enough, together with the loans that are drawn down for building new housing, are enough to finance in the region of up to about 9,000 social, affordable and cost rental homes. If the government had spent that money last year and built those homes, we would be in a massive difference in terms of housing and people's access to housing. Secondly, take vacancy seriously. Local authority vacancy, I talked about it last night. Even the slow delivery of Part 5 homes which are completed but left vacant for months when families could be moved in. But also take vacancy seriously more generally, and don't proceed with simple 0.3% vacant homes tax. Bring in a vacant homes tax at a serious level that would actually get a huge amount of those tens of thousands of vacant homes back into use. Thirdly, end the slow, bureaucratic, four-stage approval process for social housing that really ties the hands of local authorities. It actually means that some local authorities and approved housing bodies, because it can take months and even years to get through that process. They therefore rely only on acquisitions from the private sector, because it can be so slow to get the approvals to build out themselves. And fourth, we really need to move to an active planning situation, like you have in countries, that's been done successfully in countries like the Netherlands, and was done indeed here in the past in places like Marino, and not simply rely on waiting for the market to deliver housing. That's a bit like waiting for Godot. I want to address just shortly in the time left, Cathaoirleach, the Minister for Housing last evening during discussion on this same topic ridiculed people in the opposition for raising questions about the way housing numbers have been counted. And I just want to quote from an article published today by Mel Reynolds, a housing policy analyst, and Dr. Lorcan Sir, who's a senior lecturer in housing at the Technological University Dublin, published in the Irish Times, and I quote, "Ireland is a small country, so counting houses should be a straightforward process, but again there are question marks where there should not be any. The building control management system is the most valuable tool the state has that offers reliable, credible and legally required information on what is being built, and it should be used as the main measure." Now, it would be very useful, and I don't think it's too much to ask, for the government to, rather than ridicule these questions and hide behind bluster, simply give us a detailed, rational explanation as to why the government does not accept the data that's recorded in the building control management system, which is a legal requirement, doesn't accept that as a measure of the number of new homes delivered last year in 2022. Explain that to us. Forget the ridicule, the bluster. Just explain to us why you don't accept the legally counted way of counting new homes, and why you are absolutely tied to new ESB connections, which there are a lot of issues with, and why you don't accept the legally required way of counting new homes through the building control management system. And in fact, if there's problems with that, tell us what they are and tell us how you're going to correct them, because that is a national system that the government has responsibility for. And finally, Cathaoirleach, I want to say, Minister again attacks people in the opposition for voting against the LDA legislation. Let me tell you very, very clearly why we voted and the Social Democrats against this, because you and the government voted against our amendments to give the Land Development Agency proper compulsory purchase order powers, so it could buy up land, including agricultural land, that is needed for housing, and rezone it and put in the infrastructure and deliver housing as is needed, and has been done very successfully in other countries.
Thank you, Deputy.